Okay, good morning. It is a beautiful, beautiful October morning. And it's very crisp out there. There's lots of sunshine now. I had a lovely weekend. I hope you had too. I spent time with my family. I spent time with my kids. My best friend came to visit from Alberta, which was just so special. And Friday, I got to go have lunch with my mother and another lovely woman that I really love and respect. Um, and what I really enjoy about this other woman is that she started her own support group for people living with HIV and AIDS. And I really enjoy being around people who do this work without waiting and asking permission, without waiting for money, and without waiting for a non-Aboriginal person to come in and initiate it and say, oh, look what we've done. Look what we've done for these Aboriginal people. We have relationship. And, I think relationship is very misconstrued. Just because you work with somebody once doesn't mean you have relationship. Relationship is built on mutual reciprocity. It is built on mutual respect, mutual goals. And unless you have those and you talk about those, that's not relationship. Relationship is something that is akin to treaty. It is binding. And it's not something that can be undone without two people or a group of people working on it. So, relationship is something that really needs to be defined and often isn't. People think that, oh, I'm going to ask so and so to be the APHA on this committee because we're planning a community event in this town, and it's not enough just to have that person on the paper saying that they've been a part of it when they haven't really contributed. That's lying. So if you've invited a person, doesn't matter who they are, to be part of something you're planning, they need to be fully integrated into that process to build that relationship and that trust. If you don't do that, all you're doing is tokenizing and using that individual. And you're ultimately creating the definition of relationship yourself, which is a very common thing that colonizers often use as their way of saying that they've worked with the Aboriginal community. And even our own people are doing it actually now. We have had several consultations, several opportunities with Minister Philpott, particularly at the last International AIDS Conference in Durban. I know a few people who sat in on a luncheon with her, and Minister Philpott talked about Aboriginal people in HIV in Canada. I know this because my daughter was there, and she can tell you herself what was talked about. Minister Philpott talked about the next proposals and the next few years about mobilizing community on the ground, strategizing how do we reach the people on the ground. Well, clearly, whoever's been writing proposals for people who've received these cuts were not listening to what she said. She was very clear. Minister Philpott was very clear about what was happening with the dollars this year. And she was very direct about what they were looking for. So all Aboriginal organizations nationally, all non-Aboriginal organizations have had opportunity, equal opportunity, to create these funding proposals that followed direction from our health minister. So if you didn't get the funding that you thought you would, maybe you weren't listening. Maybe you had somebody writing a proposal that didn't know what Minister Philpott was looking for. So maybe, it's something that somebody has to take some responsibility for, because ultimately now what's going to happen is 70% funding is going to mean loss of jobs, loss of opportunity, retention, and the people who are going to be left empty-handed holding the bag are going to be membership, which are made of people living with HIV. We will always support our organizations. We will always step up to volunteer, because this is how organizations survive, is on the backs of volunteers. It always has been and always will. And when there's cutbacks, there's always money left for an executive director, and usually either a part-time or a full-time administrator, and that's it. Everything else is project dollars. We really don't understand how for almost 30 years now with HIV in the Aboriginal community, we still don't understand these funding formularies, and we're still not picking the right people to write our proposals for us, because everybody's trying to grab at the same pitiful amount of dollars. And unfortunately, people and organizations have become dependent on government funding, which is the first mistake you make. You are at the government's whim. You are pretty much doing everything they tell you to do, like a good little Indian. And at the end of the day, whatever you say in that proposal will either get you money or it won't. It's just the way it is. That's a funding game. It's full of all kinds of ridiculous hoops and loopholes, and they change their evaluation. They change things all the time, and you just have to kowtow, but that's what you get when you sign up with the government. And for a lot of years we've been asking members. I'm a member of a lot of organizations, and I've seen a lot of non-Aboriginal organizations using their charitable status number to go beyond what the government has given them so they can have some sustainability in some of their programs. Positive Living British Columbia is a good example of this. They have a complimentary health fund that all members can access, which gives us $35 towards alternative therapies or things. So why is it impossible for our Aboriginal organizations to use their charitable status number, their array and plethora of volunteers, and get off of the government tit? That's really it. It's the bottom line. You become dependent on something and it goes away. Guess what you're left with? Nothing. So what are you going to do? 70% of staff who have degrees, who are professionals, post-secondary education, so research, they're going to be fine. There's lots of places out there for professionals to get jobs. It's the people who don't have degrees, people who don't have the CVs, people who historically have not been handpicked for jobs and small contracts. that'll be shit out of luck. So I don't know, what are you going to do, right? Or do wrong?